again this week. Let me turn on this light here real quick. So many things to remember in the last minute. Oh, it's been a few weeks, more like a month. I'm glad to be back to singing for you again, and I'll get right to the point.
Well, I came to our town for maybe an hour. The streets, they got swept and they planted some flowers. Babies kissed to the people he waved, and he stopped at a Civil War general's grave, and he struck just the right pose, and he hit just the right chord. And he spoke of the family and then of the Lord. He addressed the concerns of the common man. He spoke of the glory of this mighty land. Just the right color, and his smile was fixed, and his wardrobe assembled from a bag full of tricks. And he had gobs of makeup that were caked on his face, starch in his collar, every hair was in place. And his wife stood beside him, and his daughter did too. Behind them, the flag with the red, white, and blue. Balloons from the rafters, they fell to the floor. Oh, happy days, we're gonna be here once more. He said all the right words, he quoted Bob Dylan songs. He sounded hip even though he quoted them wrong. And his closets were cleaned and his history revised, so his record would be spotless in most people's eyes. And he could sell you a war, he could revoke your rights, and still come off as your friend in the camera lights. And he'll run negative ads if he has to win. He'll go back on his word and he will shed his old skin. Was not touched by this guy in the least. He was no savior, I think he was the beast. And I have to admit, they staged a good show. It was all reminiscent 4 years ago, when he came to our town for maybe an hour. The streets, they got swept and they planted some flowers. Babies kissed to the people he waved, and he stopped at a Civil War general's grave. And after an hour, they whisked him away. Things went back to normal, but it took 2 or 3 days. The homeless returned to living outside, and the flowers that they planted, they all wilted and died. Yes, it came to our town for maybe an hour. The streets, they got swept and they planted some flowers.
Thought I'd start off with that since we're in the thick of things right now. As a lot of you know, I was in Denmark recently for a couple of weeks. I'm very, very fortunate to get to do a little tour again, and it was absolutely fantastic. Everything about it was wonderful, and I made sure to appreciate every minute there. To my Danish friends watching today, thank you so much for all your hospitality. To my Danish booking agent, thank you for the greatest tour ever. So, back now. I just want to mention that my friend Barbie Angel is not able to be with us today. She's not feeling well, so she will not be responding to your comments, and I cannot see them. I'll read them all after the show today. I'd love to know where you're watching from. If you might have any requests for future weeks, love to know that too. If you're interested in tipping, I put all of the tip information, the URLs, at the very beginning of the comments. So you can just scroll backwards to see it. There's several options. You can also become my patron if you're interested in supporting me on a monthly basis. And there's also information where to get recordings, whether they be CDs or digital downloads. So it was just so nice to be away, for one thing, to be out of the madness happening here these days. It was wonderful to be in a country that full of good people, where things just work and run smoothly, and people are pleasant, and I just so enjoyed being there. I started every show there with this song. It's about something very special that the Danes did during World War II to save all their Jewish people, and I introduced this each time by referring to it as a love song to Denmark.
The gardens were tended, the animals fed, even the blankets were tucked in the beds. Nothing was broken, the walkways were swept, and everything looked like it did when they left. The government shut down, they firmly refused to carry out the order to round up the Jews. A Dane was a Dane, the law was the law. There'd be no Jewish question in Denmark at all. Sweden was willing to take them all in till it was safe to go back home again. From the time word of the plan was leaked, they would only have until the end of the week. No organization, no chain of command. It was just everybody lending a hand. Schools were closed and work shut down, while the people were moved to little harbor towns. They came for the ones who had already gone to passenger ships that they didn't get on. After spending a week in the harbor waiting, they steamed away from Copenhagen. Hospital beds with bandages wrapped around their faces and heads. Some were hidden in homes or in schools or in backyard sheds with the garden tools. Rowboats, fishing boats, dinghies and yachts took them the 9 or 10 miles across. The German patrols, they hadn't a clue. Right under their noses and back again too. They came full of ones who had already gone to passenger ships that they didn't get on. After spending a week in the harbor waiting, they steamed away from Copenhagen. Crossings were made under cover of night, aiming for those faraway lights. Babies were drugged to keep them asleep. Nobody spoke and nobody breathed, and 7,000 people were saved. Thanks to their neighbors, decent and brave. And when they got home, their walkways were swept, and everything looked like it did when they left. They came for the ones who had already gone to passenger ships that they didn't get on. After spending a week in the harbor waiting, they steamed away from Copenhagen.
So, the entire time I was there, people kept coming up to me and asking me just what the hell is going on back in your country. And I had to explain this night after night after night. And all I could really ever think to say was, half the people in this country are absolutely crazy, and the other half are out of their minds.
Well, half the people are looking to rumble, and the other half are spoiling for a fight. The logic that they're using is all jumbled, but who needs facts when you know you're right? Well, half the people nowadays are bonkers, and the other half have all gone insane. Everybody everywhere looks angry. They need to blame somebody for their pain. Well, now half the news you get today is phony, and the other half you get today is fake. But what's real is the independent journalist who gets tortured but refuses to break. Well, half the people have lost their marbles, and the other half have all lost their minds. On top of that, we've become so heartless. Underneath it all, we must have lost our spines. Well, half the people are just plain cuckoo, and the other half are just plain Looney Tunes. Bite your tongue, you can't talk sense to any of them. They hate you when you burst their balloons. Now half the people have gone crazy, and the other half have all gone mad. Well, I could make a fortune selling bridges if I hadn't sold the last one that I had. Well, half the people have no idea, and the other half, they haven't got a clue. They'll believe anything anyone will tell them, unless it can be proven to be true. Well, half the people are just plain cuckoo, and the other half are just plain Looney Tunes. Bite your tongue, you can't talk sense to any of them. They hate you when you burst their balloons. Now half the people are talking rubbish, and the other half are all just talking crap. You've got to be careful and remind yourself not to take the bait or step into the trap. 'Cause half the people nowadays are bonkers, and the other half have all gone insane. Everybody everywhere looks angry. They need to blame somebody for their pain. Well, half the people are just plain cuckoo, and the other half are just plain Looney Tunes. Bite your tongue, you can't talk sense to any of them. They hate you when you burst their balloons, oh yeah. They hate you when you burst their balloons.
Like to do a baseball song. Believe it or not, I actually had requests for baseball songs while I was in Denmark. This one in particular. It's about my very favorite baseball player of all time, a man by the name of Dick Allen, who unfortunately was supposed to have the vote for the Hall of Fame Veterans Committee this December, and they have postponed it for one more year. And I truly believe Dick Allen would have gotten in this year. Hopefully next year that will happen. He was a great player, big home run hitter, rookie of the Year in the National League 1964. Was the American League MVP later on in his career. Now, when he was playing for the Phillies, when I was a very little kid, the Philadelphia fans would boo him every time they came up to bat, and I didn't understand this as a kid, and it wasn't until I was an adult that I came to understand the racism of the day and how it affected the situation. Dick Allen was the first African-American player who was a star that the Phillies ever had, and they didn't even integrate until 1957, 10 years after Jackie Robinson. So 7 years after that, Dick Allen was a rookie with the Philadelphia Phillies, and the fans used to boo him every time he came up to bat, and his response was that he would wait till the Phillies were back in the field on defense, and with his shoes, he would write words in the dirt around first base, and he would write boo right back at the fans. This is a song I wrote for my dad.
Well, me and you, we never booed Richie Allen. And I've never understood why people did. He had a homer every time he stepped up to the plate. That's what I remember as a kid. Richie in the field out there by first base, the target of some mighty foul words. With his shoes he'd scrawl between the pitches. Boo, great big letters in the dirt. Well, Philly fans, they've been known to get nasty. When Joe must go, they run him out of town. I saw Santa get hit by a snowball, then get hit again when he was down. Well, me and you, we never booed Richie Allen, even if he did sometimes strike out. I was too young to read the papers to know what all that booing was about. Well, that big collapse of '64, it was ugly. They blew a lead of 6 in 1/2 games with 12 to play. Some might say their fans were justifiably angry. World Series tickets printed up in vain. Printed up in vain. Philly fans, they've been known to get nasty. When Joe must go, they run him out of town. I saw Santa get hit by a snowball, then get hit again when he was down.
I had the pleasure and the privilege of meeting Mr. Dick Allen in person about 25 years ago when the Baseball Hall of Fame had invited me out to Cooperstown, New York to do a concert there, and I was tipped off to the fact that Dick Allen happened to be there too, representing the Philadelphia Phillies. He now works for them in public relations, if you appreciate irony. And it was suggested I take a drive over to the Otesaga Hotel where he'd be staying and see if I could leave a copy of the CD at the front desk, which I did. Drove over there and walked through that lobby door, and to my absolute amazement, there was Dick Allen in the lobby in the middle of a conversation with somebody else. So I waited till they finished and walked over to him and introduced myself, told him I'd written this song and handed him the CD. He was very curious about it. He kept looking down at it, looking up at me, down at it,
at me, sizing me up. And in that moment, it occurred to me that there was a photograph in the booklet that would be fun to show him in person. So I asked for that CD back. Took the shrink wrap off and pulled out the booklet and showed him the photo of the word boo in the dirt that we had composed for this. I was hoping I'd get a little reaction, but I was not at all prepared for the tear that I saw roll down his cheek. My hero. Well, this was before the days of the $1 million contracts, and before the days of the artificial grass. He stood a bit outside the lines, which made him fair game for those times. 'Cause Richie Allen, he never kissed a white man's ass. Well, me and you, we never booed Richie Allen. No, we'd pound our mitts and we'd yell, we want a hit. How could they call a guy a bum after he just hit a home run? That didn't make any sense to a kid. Well, I've since found out all these years later. Now I know a lot more than I did. And if back then you knew, Daddy, why all those other people booed. Thanks for letting me have my heroes as a kid.
Just want to mention again that if you're interested in tipping today, all of the URLs, the links, are at the very beginning of the comment section. My friend Barbie is not feeling well today and unable to join, so she is not there to monitor your comments, and I cannot see them until after I'm done the show today. But I will read every one of them, and I'll respond to them all, and I hope you'll let me know where you're watching from. Hope you'll let me know if you have any requests for future weeks. And if you're interested in becoming my patron or picking up recordings of mine, you can, of course, find all that information at the beginning of the comments. I'm also available, should you be interested, in private Zoom concerts and private guitar lessons and private songwriting critiques and instructions. So feel free to contact me if you have an interest in having me do something like that with you. In keeping with the theme, I'm gonna move on to this. Sure seems like there's a lot of backroom wheeling and dealing going on these days.
Boys in the back room who used to run the city any way they wanted to. They were stealing from the kitty, stomping out the cigars any place they wanted to. Well, you could go to jail for, they could do in front of you. The boys in the back room sat on the commissions that were supposed to regulate factory emissions. Toxins in the air, toxins in the water. These were our protectors. They were sanctioned in the slaughter. The boys in the back room, they didn't like attention, drawn to their activities, which the paper never mentioned. Thanks to the editor, who was a good old friend of theirs. So was the police chief, and also the developers. The boys in the back room, they went golfing every Sunday. They had a game of pinochle that happened every Monday. Tuesdays were the meetings where the public was invited, where they went through all the motions, but no wrongs were ever righted. The boys in the back room on Wednesdays traded favors. They had a secret handshake and other such behavior. They fixed traffic tickets, granted exemptions and waivers, awarded city contracts to associates and neighbors. The boys in the back room, they were desperate to hold on, assassinate characters of whoever might have told on them. But the day did finally come when they stood before the jury. Some got sent to prison. It was a one-paragraph story. The boys in the back room who just used to make the rules any way they wanted to. They thought that they still had the people fooled.
So, I had a very interesting situation develop over this next song. It was thought by a radio station down in Texas to be autobiographical, and because of that, they refused not only to play this song, but they banned everything from the entire Them and Us album because they thought that I was promoting racism with this next song. I'm sure that you will not make that assumption. I'm sure you're way too intelligent to think that this is autobiographical.
Me and my supremacist friends are only doing what God intends. Burning crosses, burning mosques, vandalizing synagogues. We're the patriotic sons with our semi-automatic guns, prepping for a civil war to make things like they was before. Me and my supremacist clan, this is how we take our stand. Underneath a Nazi flag, marching right up the main drag, past the church, past the school, where they teach the golden rule, where the children play outside. When we go by, they run and hide. The secret handshake makes you kin. At the door, it gets you in. It's how we tell a friend from foe. It's something only we would know. Me and my supremacist bud stir each other's thirst for blood, getting drunker by the hour, mixing things that all taste sour, till we can't control the rage. Any excuse to open the cage. It cannot stay inside the house. The beast is foaming at the mouth. Me and my supremacist dad one time beat a foreigner bad. He was somewhere he shouldn't have been. He shouldn't have been with his color skin. And after daddy kicked his ass and left him lying in the grass, I got some of my own licks in. He was somewhere he shouldn't have been. The secret handshake makes you kin. At the door it gets you in. It's how we tell a friend from foe. It's something only we would know. Me and my 12-year-old son one made a foreigner run, chased him down a dead-end street until the circle was complete. There was nowhere that he could run, but I couldn't do what my daddy done. Not in front of my own son. I couldn't do what daddy done. The secret handshake makes you kin. At the door it gets you in. It's how we tell a friend from foe. It's something only we would know. The secret handshake makes you kin. At the door it gets you in. It's how we tell a friend from foe. It's something only we would know.
So I'm sure you didn't think that was autobiographical. Let's see. Time for a baseball song. Another one. And this one kind of fits right with that last song. It's about a very interesting game that took place in the 1920s between a team of all African American players called the Monrovians and a team made up of the Ku Klux Klan. And the Monrovians won that day.
It was no place for a lady on a Sunday afternoon. 1925 on the 21st of June. It was 102 degrees and even hotter in the stands. The day the all-black Monrovians beat the Ku Klux Klan. No strangleholds, no razors, no horsewhips were allowed. They put a couple extra policemen in the crowd. Another violent instruments of argument were banned. The day the all-black Monrovians beat the Ku Klux Klan. Now the Klan was not too popular in Kansas at the time. They already been exposed for the racketeering crimes. And in Wichita, they didn't seem to have a lot of fans. The day the all-black Monrovians beat the Ku Klux Klan. Only baseball would be on tap at Island Park that day. Ran the headline in the Beacon on the morning they would play. They were trying to head off trouble before the game began. The day the all-black Monrovians beat the Ku Klux Klan. Now the umps were Irish Catholic and they favored neither side. Now they're on the field, the rules were evenly applied. It was a very good game of baseball, said the newspaper man. The day the all-black Monrovians beat the Ku Klux Klan. Well, it was a seesaw battle, a pitcher's duel through four. The Monrovians would break it open 10-8 the score. And then drive off in jalopies and knock those nice sedans. The day the all-black Monrovians beat the Ku Klux Klan. The day the all-black Monrovians beat the Ku Klux Klan.
Well, it was pointed out to me not too long ago that I have this habit of shaking my guitar at the end of a song. I never knew I did that for all these years I've been playing guitar. But there's actually a very sensible explanation. The reason is I do that is because if any of those notes at the end get trapped inside the guitar, if they don't come out, you have to shake them out. And if they don't come out, they'll tend to stay there and get stale, and then they get really stinky. Not good at all. So I try to get those last couple out so none of them get rotten. Well, there are only two types of people in this country, as I explained to my friends in Denmark: those who are them and those who are us, though we are all just us.
There's a standoff all across the Great Divide, with friends and family members on both sides. Someone struck a match, it would combust, scorching everyone, both them and us. It's raining dirty words and disrespect. It's not having any positive effect. The bridges have collapsed because of rust. We can't reach each other, them and us. We've got our earplugs in and our blinders on, and we wonder, where have all the flowers gone? Where once there was a garden, cool and lush, all that's left here now is them and us. And I've never felt so lonely in this world as I do when all those banners are unfurled and the airwaves are just spewing all that stuff about us and them. Look what it's done to us. Our differences are few and overblown, and it sometimes leads to punches being thrown. But there seems to be few things to discuss, but you can't say a word to them or us. We write them off because of how they vote, and we write them off because they came on a boat. We turn our backs with contempt and with disgust at every one of them who isn't us. We identify them by the clothes they wear. We identify them by their skin and hair. And we look for any reason not to trust whatever about them is not like us. And I've never felt so lonely in this world as I do when all those banners are unfurled and the airwaves are just spewing all that stuff about us and them. Look what it's done to us. Thoughtful, decent people turning mean. If only all our gods could intervene. Well, there must be some controls they could adjust. Maybe they could make us whole, them and us. And I've never felt so lonely in this world as I do when all those banners are unfurled and the airwaves are just spewing all that stuff about us and them. Look what it's done to us. There's a standoff all across the Great Divide, with friends and family members on both sides.
In case you tuned in late, my friend Barbie is not able to be with us today as your digital concierge, and so I have put the various links for how to tip me if you're interested. I've put them at the very beginning of the comments, and so you just need to scroll backwards to find them. And any amount that you would care to donate would be very much appreciated. This is entirely how I'm making my living these days. Now the Denmark tour is over, I have no more dates on my calendar, except for my Sunday live streams. Glad you could be with me. As everybody knows, it's gotten downright impossible to have a conversation with anybody these days that doesn't already feel the same way you do about politics and anything else going on, and you can just butt heads. But after trying every imaginable approach that did not work, I have finally come up with one that does work, and you can try this at home.
After 3 or 4 tries, I poked out his eyes. That's how I got him to see. To get him to hear, I screamed in his ear. I gave him the 3rd degree. I sharply berated him and told him I hated him. I wasn't very kind. I shouted and cussed until I won his trust. Well, that's how I changed his mind. I shunned him, ignored him, I wouldn't look toward him, I only would give him my back. I accused him of lies, I would not compromise, I erased him after the fact. I was abrupt, I would often interrupt, and we were volatile when combined. And in stating my case, I blew up in his face, and that's how I changed his mind. That's how I changed his mind. That's how I changed his mind. I blamed him, shamed him, insulted and inflamed him. That's how I changed his mind. Now this man was an ass, and I was gonna let him pass, let him take a wide berth of me. But I was right and he was wrong, like I was telling him all along, trying to just get him to see. But he's a this and I'm a that, so we couldn't have a chat of the friendly and civilized kind. Round after round, I just ground him down. That's how I changed his mind. I stomped on his toes and I punched him in the nose. I was using irony. So sure of the truth, I knocked out his tooth and I kicked him twice in the knee. I won over his heart with a poisonous dart, and you should have seen me unwind, being overly cruel and with ridicule. Well, that's how I changed his mind. That's how I changed his mind. That's how I changed his mind. I blamed him, shamed him, insulted and inflamed him. That's how I changed his mind. So I called him a fool, challenged him to a duel. I threw my white glove in his face. 20 paces and I shot, and I must have hit the spot. Anyway, that's how I pleaded my case. Well, I won in the end, after making him bend, after all the papers were signed. In the end, I won, yeah, that's how it was done. Well, that's how I changed his mind. That's how I changed his mind. That's how I changed his mind. Blamed him, shamed him, insulted and inflamed him. That's how I changed his mind. Blamed him, shamed him, I might have even maimed him. That's how I changed his mind. That's how I changed his mind. That's how I changed his mind. That's how I changed his mind.
And it works every time. I'm getting down to the last few songs here. When Jackie Robinson first signed his contract with the Brooklyn Dodgers, he had to play one season for their minor league farm club in Montreal, the Montreal Royals. And in his very first game, Jackie Robinson went 4 for 5. One of his hits was a home run. And the batter that followed Jackie in the batting order, a man by the name of George Shotgun Shuba, he stood waiting at home plate to greet Jackie Robinson when he crossed the plate on that home run. And he stuck out his hand, and they had a handshake right there at home plate. This was a monumental moment in baseball history. As you're all aware, there were other teammates of Jackie's that did not even want to play on the same field with him. And this moment was very profound, and it was caught by a photographer. And that photograph became one of the most iconic photos in all of baseball history. And a statue will be unveiled this coming April in Youngstown, Ohio, of this very handshake. And who knows, I might just be there to sing it if touring is not possible by then. So this is called the Handshake.
Both the ump and the catcher had their hands on their hips. It was only a handshake, was a coming to grips. Sun was casting long shadows as he touched every base. When he rounded the third one, the sun lit up his face. It was only a handshake, well, maybe not quite. It was captured on camera in black and white. The two of them smiling as he touches the plate, as he crosses the line, when he knows that he's safe. It was only a handshake on opening day. No one knew what would happen if the fella could play. It was only a handshake, but it was the first of course there were others who stood up and cursed. It was only a handshake on a minor league field. And it wasn't till later it became a big deal. It's just something that happened. It was nothing he'd planned. The guy hit a homer, so he stuck out his hand. It was only a handshake, bond between men, teammate to teammate. That's all it was then. He stood there to greet him. He could have waited on deck. It was only a handshake, but he showed him respect. It was only a handshake. It was only a handshake. It was only a handshake. It was only a handshake.
All right. Well, I have two more songs for you. And you want to see something really cool? Presto, changeo, abracadabra. Check that out. That's pretty slick, huh? So, here's a song I wrote about a man named Amnon Weinstein who lives in Tel Aviv. And Amnon has been restoring violins from the Holocaust, violins that belong to people who perished in the Holocaust, violins that maybe were found in attics or in cellars or underneath false floors that were utterly destroyed, and he has been painstakingly and lovingly restoring them. And several years back, when there were 40 of these that had been restored, a concert was held at the Western Wall in Jerusalem where all of these violins were played, and the music that was performed for this concert was the music of the composers that had been banned by the Nazis. Amnon continues to work on them. He has over 1,000 now. 1,000, sorry. There's over 100 of them restored, probably well over 100. And they call them the Violins of Hope, and they go on tour periodically around the world, and maybe they'll be in a city near you sometime soon. So this is called Your Violin.
Violin's ready, it's here in the shop. It's got a new bridge, and it's got a new top. The neck, it was broken, snapped in two, but now it's almost as good as new. I salvaged the splinters the best that I could. Wherever I couldn't, I patched up the wood. Sounds pretty good, it looks okay. Violin's ready, it's ready to play. Music was silenced, locked in its case. Had to be hidden and not show its face. Stormtroopers came, kicked down the door. They found it after they tore up the floor. Just for amusement, they forced you to play. And after you'd finished, they took you away. They stomped it to bits, just left it there. Your violin's ready, I made the repairs. bones of its body were kept in a sack by the neighbor in case you might ever come back. Up in the attic, musty with mold, discovered after the house was sold. It wasn't much more than a bag of debris the day when it was delivered to me. The name inside was yours as well. Your violin has a story to tell. Every so often, another appears, like the rest that have found me over the years. Who'd it belong to? Where was it from? Who wore down the back of the neck with their thumb? I take the pieces and I make them whole, healing the body and waking the soul. I cut and I sand, I bend and I glue, in honor of him and remembrance of you. I cut and I sand, I bend and I glue, in honor of him and remembrance of you.
So thank you all very much for tuning in this week. I have one more song for you, and I'll be back next week. Same time, 2 o'clock on Facebook and 4 o'clock on YouTube. Once again, if you're interested in tipping today, all of the information on how to do so is at the very beginning of the comments. And hope you've enjoyed today's show. It's a song that I want to sing for my mom. It's her favorite song of mine. It's a song that I wrote 39 years ago. And if you're watching this, I would love to know how this song may have affected you in any kind of profound way over the years. I'm working on a book collecting people's stories. And so if you have one, please send it to me. See you next week. Stay well. Stay healthy.
Well, I hope I see you later, 'cause it's time for me to go. That's my ride that just pulled over, and it sure was good to know you. So go and say you're calling. Go and fill somebody's cup. If you see an angel falling, won't you stop and help them up? We are each other's angels, and we meet when it is time. We keep each other going, and we show each other signs. Sometimes you'll stumble, sometimes you'll just lie down, sometimes you'll get lonely with all these people around. You might shiver when the wind blows, and you might get blown away. You might lose a little color, you might lose a little faith. But we are each other's angels, and we meet when it is time. We keep each other going, and we show each other signs. So thank you for the water. Thought I was gonna die out here in the desert, but you quenched my thirst. Let's break a little bread together. Got a little manna. It was a gift from someone who was passing by and offered me a lift. We are each other's angels, and we meet when it is time. We keep each other going, and we show each other signs.
Stay well. Stay safe. See you next week. Thanks for listening.